ほほう、これはなかなか。
Hi and welcome to Excurgane Blog and Photography. I'm Steven. Today I will be reviewing this scale figure right here by Good Small Company. This is a proper scale figure, a higher end figure that costs much more than pop-up parade figures. My previous two figure reviews by the same company were pop-up parades. Those are budget figures, but they also suffered from quality control issues. So it will be interesting to find out whether this figure has a similar issue or not. Introducing Good Small Company's 1x7 scale Mooncancer BB from Fate Grand Order. To be honest, I have no idea at all what this Mooncancer thing is all about in the Fate series. In addition to the 7 Servant classes, we had Ruler, Avenger and Foreigner class even, which I do understand their individual roles. But Mooncancer, despite reading so many articles over at Type Moon Wiki, just to get some clarification, I still have no clear idea what she is all about.
私は私が何も分かってないということを思い出しました。自分でもびっくりするくらいに何も覚えてないです。
So here we are, I bought this figure just because I like her character design, and of course I'm collecting FGO stuff a lot. One more thing is that this figure has a second version, one with a darker skin, and that one was released a month earlier than this one over here. Did I buy that version? The answer is no, because this version is much better to me for two reasons. The first one being that wink in her face, that expression, that is not something you see very often in figures. So that's something unique about her facial expression alone. And the second reason being the signboard she is holding over here, which reads "End of the Queue." That makes this figure a much better candidate for figure photography, especially in a diorama where I can create a diorama of a Comic Con or whatever it is, and I can put her in there. So this is much better for photography purposes. If I were to look for a darker skin version of Mooncancer BB, I would be waiting for Alta's version. So yeah, that is how I'm planning my purchase for Mooncancer at the moment. Before we move on to this figure in detail, we take a quick look at her box. And this is not a cheap figure to own, in a sense that this figure might cost a little bit over 16,000 Japanese yen. But shipping cost is going to cost you quite a bit due to the large size of her box. So as you can see, the box is fairly large for this figure, no thanks to her hair. Her hair is taking up a lot of space, so do bear in mind when you are planning to purchase this figure, spare some additional budget to ship this figure. Moving on to the sculpt of this figure, I am especially very pleased with how her face turns out in the final product in this figure. Can't find any fault with it at all, and as I mentioned earlier, this face expression you're getting with this figure, not something you see very often, and I do like it a lot. Moving on to the body, the torso down to her hips and legs, sublime sculpting over here. I have no complaints at all, and I'm very happy with what this figure looks like, from the front at least. Yes, from the front, because when we move on to the back of this figure, there is one major flaw which you won't miss even with your own bare naked eyes. And I mean, just take a look at this for yourself. It is so obvious right there on her hair. It is kind of upsetting in the sense that everywhere else the entire figure is just so well made except for one glaring obvious flaw on the back of the figure. But you can argue that this is the back of the figure, and once she is on the shelf, you won't see it, which is a fair argument. But at the same time, once you know there is something there on the figure that is not quite right, you will always be remembered by that every time you look at the figure, and that is something a bit unsettling, a bit upsetting to me. Fortunately, the paintwork of this figure is actually quite decent, you do get a lot of different textures and details because of all the different type of paints that were used on this figure. From gloss to semi-gloss to matte, every single texture is there on this figure for you to appreciate it. And to add on, there are no flaws related to painting such as scratches, paint bleeding, or smudges anywhere on this figure. Even as a guy myself, I do find the huge hot pink base to be very striking and attractive. I actually like it a lot. With both feet plugged into the base and metal pegs included, stability is not an issue at all, so when you look at the big picture, the whole figure in its entirety, this is a very well made figure, except for that one huge flaw on the back of a hair. I know I've repeated myself too frequently with that part of this figure, so if you were to ask me whether this figure is worth purchasing to those of you who want a figure of Mooncancer and BB, you need to ask yourself, what are your expectations at this price point for a scale figure? Are you expecting something 100% flawless, or you are able to accept the fact that mass-produced products are not always perfect? Is this flaw going to be very prevalent in many copies of this figure, perhaps every copy? And I will tell you right now, the answer is most likely yes, because all of these figures, they are mass produced from the same exact mold in the factory. So at least there will be a few thousand copies of this figure with the same exact problem. And the most unfortunate part is that under 20,000 Japanese yen is not considered to be a very high price for scale figure nowadays. The very best the figure market has to offer are well over 30,000 yen or even 40,000. So this is not what the best the figure market has to offer, and naturally you might come across some flaws depending on whether they are big or small. In this case, I would consider this to be a rather major flaw, albeit it is on the back of the figure, which might matter less to some people. That is all for the review of this figure, and thank you very much for watching. I shall see you again soon. Goodbye.